Andy, my dude, have you heard of the magical website builder known as Squarespace?
Ugh, not another Squarespace ad. I feel like every podcast is sponsored by them.
Hey, don't knock it till you try it. Yes, okay, it is overhyped, but actually it lives up to the hype. Squarespace is like a website fairy godmother. With a click of a button, your site transforms into a beautiful masterpiece.
A website fairy godmother? That sounds interesting. What makes it so magical?
Well, for starters, those slick templates make anyone look like a professional web designer. Pick one, customize the colors and fonts to match your brand, and voila. Plus, the drag-and-drop fluid engine is so easy, your grandma could build a site on Squarespace.
Well, she did knit me a lovely scarf last Christmas. Maybe website design is next.
Exactly. And when you're ready to sell your Nana's handmade scarves online, Squarespace has built-in e-commerce. Add a store with one click. Get flexible payment options. Then watch those sales roll in. And when she wants to teach others her steezy scarf skills, Squarespace's new courses feature is just the ticket. Nana can set up her curriculum and enrollments and payments in a snap and become the next e-knitting influencer.
Oh, wow, you really sold me with the grandma angle. Sign me up for that free trial.
Just go to thenextreel.com/Squarespace and transform your site into a beautiful Squarespace masterpiece.
Well, thanks, Pete. Even though it's overhyped, Squarespace actually sounds perfect for Nana's site's needs. Appreciate the warning on the ads, though. I'll brace myself next time I listen to a podcast.
Anytime. Let me know if you need any help getting that site up and running. Andy, can you believe we've almost hit 700 episodes of The Next Reel?
I know, it's crazy. And with all the other episodes in our family of podcasts, we are well over 1,200 episodes of movie conversation. It's really pretty amazing that we've gotten to have these in-depth movie chats every week for over a decade now.
And we couldn't have done it without our loyal community of film fans. Their support over the years has meant so much.
For sure. That reminds me, we should give the merch store a shout out. Buying shirts from thenextreel.com/merch is a great way listeners can continue to support the show. Plus, they get to sport our great designs.
Absolutely. I think sometimes folks forget we have a variety of shirts, mugs, phone cases, and more available. In fact, a great place to start is with a shirt sporting the Next Reel's logo.
We also have that classic Fast Times Spicoli Surf School tee, or the weirdly popular Rusty's European Tour shirt.
The one from National Lampoon's European Vacation. Why is that so popular?
Search me, but we have sold a ridiculous number of those. I guess there are a lot of Rustys taking trips to Europe?
We're always adding new designs based on movies we've covered, like our brand new design for a streetcar named Desire, featuring a streetcar named Desire. So if you want to rep your love of TNR and films, head to thenextreel.com/merch.
Every purchase helps us continue to have these weekly in-depth conversations. So visit thenextreel.com/merch today.
And as always, thanks for listening and being a part of the Next Reel community. We've got lots more great movie chats coming your way. This is The Next Reel, everybody. I'm Pete Wright, and that there's Andy Nelson.
Good eye.
And we spoil movies. Tonight on the show, we're kicking off a little series we like to call This is Real Life, Jack. Talking about some of our favorite true stories. First up, the story of the Australian role in Apollo 11. It's Rob Sitch's 2000 film, The Dish. Before we get into that, you should learn more about us at thenextreel.com. Subscribe to the show in your favorite podcast app or join us on YouTube. You can follow us on Twitter and Facebook at The Next Reel. And if you think the world's a basketball, then you'd better stir the dish and get ready for The Next Reel's Instagram hashtag Pony Prize hashtag Guess the Movie Challenge.
And with that, since Games Master Stephen Smart is busy readjusting the azimuth to track his own location, I'm here to fill you in this week. The movie was Joel Schumacher's 2002 film Bad Company, starring Anthony Hopkins and Chris Rock. Two great tastes that taste great together. This week's winner was @Per76, so congrats once again. You're entered to win the 2016 Pony Prize.
You know, first of all, can't believe you said that about the tastes thing. That was weird. Second, Anthony Hopkins. Ooh, Westworld, baby.
Oh, yeah.
Wait.
I don't have anything to say about that.
You don't see that. Yeah. I can't believe you didn't get HBO just to see this stinking thing, just because we just interviewed just now I don't have any more just to say, but we just interviewed Paul Cameron.
I know.
Andy.
I'm going to make it up to him here in just a second.
All right, I look forward to that. We do have a little bit of follow-up from our friend. Remember our new Swedish friend?
Oh, yes.
Johan Welander wrote us again, and thank you so much for writing. Johan, we're grateful to hear from you, and you were applauding our interest in the new Morten Tildum film, and you recommended a Norwegian film that we have to go see. You say you must go back to the Norwegian film that cleared the path for him to direct the imitation game Headhunters from 2011. He says, go watch the trailer, or preferably just take my word for it and see the film instantly. Maybe it's on American Netflix. So the trailer doesn't spoil a lot of the magnificent action sequences starring Axel Hennie, who later went on to star as one of Matt Damon's space comrades in The Martian, and Nikolai Coster-Waldau, Jaime Lannister, in Game of Thrones. This is where he slaps us with the proverbial glove. Are you ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
This is maybe the greatest action thriller made in the last 10 years.
Ooh.
Big words. And so I'm very excited about seeing this film now.
I am too, and I will say it is on Netflix, and I have added it to my queue, and I'm very excited to put it on. But I'm knee deep in The Walking Dead, so I've got to catch up with that, and then I will jump in and watch Headhunters.
It's time. Let's do some trailers.
My trailer this week is actually a teaser, but it's so fitting because we did just talk to Paul Cameron. It is the teaser for Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Men Tell No Tales.
That was drama.
I bring the drama.
Sure do.
Or I bring some form of drama. Anyway, yes, this is number 5 in the pirate franchise, and it's a teaser. It gives you a little dose of some excitement, some energy, something interesting happening. You get some creepy pirates in there. You get some ghosts. You get threats against Jack Sparrow. All sorts of great stuff. This is, of course, another round with Johnny Depp and the return of Orlando Bloom as Will Turner. And then, of course, the trailer really focuses on the incredibly creepy Captain Salazar, played by Javier Bardem. And there's something really creepy about him. The Pirates movies have certainly had some really interesting antagonists throughout. He looks to be another fresh take on what you can do with ghosts in a pirate movie. With his kind of floating dead face that he's got. It's incredibly kind of creepy and off-putting, but I'm excited. It looks interesting. It's nice to see them doing something else with the franchise. I really kind of struggled with the original trilogy. I know a lot of people love it. For me, I think it just kind of went into kind of a really bizarre realm, and I had a struggle going along with the ride. So I skipped the 4th one, but I am really curious about this one, and so I may actually go back and kind of spend some time with the 4th one before I go see this one. I'm curious to see how it ends up doing, because this one ended up having just a ton of production woes trying to get it made, and pre-production and development. I mean, they started developing this one before On Stranger Tides actually was released, and then just with they're concerned that Johnny Depp wasn't as big and able to carry big blockbusters after Lone Ranger. And struggles with trying to find the right story, and a whole just a rotating door of directors coming in and out. It's taken a good number of years. And now it's the Norwegian film duo Joachim Ronning and Espen Sandberg, maybe I got those right, who are directing this one. And Jeff Nathanson ended up coming in to write it. I'm really curious. I'm very curious to see what they do with the story now that they're not locked into the trilogy, kind of like the previous one. So maybe this will be worth checking out. It definitely looks interesting. So kudos, Paul. And what do you think?
Well, I'm dubious. I'm interested in it only now because of Paul, because, and I think the trailer, you get to see a little bit of the darkness, but, the other films kind of dabbled in darkness too. And so I'm nervous for it because now I have some skin in the game, right? Now I feel like we know the guy and we're excited about him being successful. And yet, man, number 4 was terrible. And for this kind of, I was hoping, I guess, for more of a reboot. My goodness, after, so Stranger Tides comes out, and then poor Johnny Depp. I mean, just like Dark Shadows and Lone Ranger and Transcendence and Into the Woods and goodness, Mordecai. We did have Black Mass after that, but, there was a string of films that were just not great.
Hey, don't put Into the Woods in that list, buddy.
No, you're right. And I'm a big fan of Into the Woods. He was the low point in Into the Woods for me, the very, very low point. And so, I'm nervous for this film. I was hoping, I guess, for more of a flush than just directorial and photography talent on this film. I was looking for more of a flush and to see, what else can we do with the universe? Everybody else is doing the universe. What can we do with the universe? And maybe get rid of some of the old characters, Barbossa and even Jack Sparrow. Let's see what else happens. Get Orlando Bloom out of there. Let's just churn some people through. And see what a new world looks like.
I think that's actually really interesting. I would love to see them do that. But of course, these are things that franchises are built upon. So I'm curious to see how they fit Jack Sparrow and Will Turner back into this story with Salazar. I'm really curious to see how the whole thing works. Also, Paul McCartney has a little cameo in it, I guess, considering they had some Stones action before. Now it's time to get the Beatles action in there.
Right. It's more of a bebop-y kind of Pirates movie. They've just been on a long sort of decline over since 2003 and The Curse of the Black Pearl, which I quite enjoyed. And I think they set up a fun universe on a really wonky premise of just sort of another Disney, let's take a video game and make a movie, or a ride, a theme park ride and make a movie out of it. Dubious premise, and yet I think it was fun, and none of them have really met that standard for me. And by number 4, it had fallen so far. It might as well have been a different series.
Well, but I mean, that would be kind of what you'd be looking for, something that would fall far from the original story. Right?
Yeah, well, that's what I want. I just mean it's in terms of
you want it to
quality,
fall far but be good.
I'd like it to fall far. So far, it's next to another really talented tree. How about that?
All right, well, that sounds good. This is, of course, a big blockbuster tentpole opening next summer. It's going to be Memorial Day weekend, May 26th, 2017, here in the U.S.
Andy, my trailer is, it's kind of a downer. It is this. It's Christine. It's called Christine. It is the story of the television news reporter Christine Chubbuck and her long descent into depression about the state of media in the news media in particular in the 1970s, and her eventual on-air suicide. It is interesting for a number of reasons, this film. First of all, the cast I'm very excited about. I really love Rebecca Hall, who's going to be playing the title character, and Michael C. Hall, who is playing another producer character, introduces her to the world. It is directed by Antonio Campos. I don't know a lot that he has done. After School, Simon Killer, and then Christine. That's all that I know of him. He's done a couple of shorts before that. Did you ever heard of him?
I haven't heard of him, but I have seen a movie he produced, Martha, Marcy, May, Marlene.
Oh, yes.
But yeah, I haven't heard of any of the stuff that he has directed. So, I don't know. I love Rebecca Hall. I'm really curious about this story. This is one of those stories that you've heard about, people hear about, but it's not one that I really looked into. It wasn't something I learned about in school. It's just kind of, by word of mouth sort of thing. And it certainly was something that I found very interesting. It's one of those things that I'm like, why did they take so long to tell this story? It seems like the sort of thing they would gravitate to. So I'm really curious to see what Campos does with this story, knowing that it's a period film. It's obviously a very difficult story. It doesn't end positively. How are they going to tell this in a compelling way for a film?
First-time screenwriter Craig Shilowich is up for this one. He has produced a number of things, none that I have seen, which again, I'm disappointed. This looks like a really interesting film, a tough one to watch, I imagine, particularly as we're more and more familiar with the story. But I saw this trailer and I looked at our flick chart number 1, Andy, And I find it very interesting. Of course, we're talking about Paddy Chayefsky's network, which really is a very similar story. And that actually came out during the period that this was happening or had happened in the real life. So interesting. Maybe that was a function of why it took quite so long to get this one produced. Should be interesting. The other, I think, footnote about why this is interesting, this film in particular, is that it is one of the very rare, I say really sadly, stories of a video, like a high-profile video or filmed death scene on air that has never been seen after it happened, right? They cut to a movie when it happened, and then nobody has seen the footage since. And so that's an interesting thing, and it makes it kind of even more mysterious and maybe sadly compelling.
Yeah, it sounded like I was the station manager or somebody kind of kept the footage locked away, and then when he passed away, went to his wife, and now they've passed it off to a law firm that's kind of keeping it under lock and key so no one ever sees it again.
Right.
But apparently it does still exist
somewhere,
spurring lots of thought about what it is, what it looks like, which is kind of disturbing. But it is really interesting to pick that trailer considering our series.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
To see how they tell that story.
Another true story. I'm sure I planned that.
Mm-hmm.
This one, it already played at Sundance this year in January. It did a number of festivals around the world leading up to its wider release in the U.S. hopefully soon. It's still in festivals. I think the Chicago and Mill Valley Film Festivals, October 15th. So be on the lookout for a wider release of this film. I don't have an exact date of wide release. Maybe October 14th. That's the one that is listed as no film festival in IMDb. So I'm hoping that's the one. So be on the lookout for it. Looks pretty good.
Excellent.
Andy,
Cool.
It's the Science Minister. Now, who's on for another devil on horseback?
Parkes Australia had the only dish on Earth capable of broadcasting the moonwalk.
Huh?
The moonwalk.
Oh.
What's it doing in the middle of a sheep paddock?
Never had a mission of this importance fallen to a more unlikely group of local officials and engineers. With a few short hours to landing,
we feel confident that we have the expertise to complete our role.
The world riveted to their TVs and immortality within their grasp.
You'll be able to hear Armstrong talking to Houston?
Just by hitting a couple of buttons there.
The unthinkable happened.
The Dish, Andy, 2000. This is a comedy drama history film, and it was directed by Rob Sitch and written by Santo Chilaro, Tom Gleisner, Jane Kennedy, and Rob Sitch. And they are telling the story of the Australian role in the Apollo 11 moon landing. And if you are like me, you didn't know that Australia had a role in the Apollo 11 moon landing, nor did you know it was so charming.
Here. I saw this movie actually in the theaters when it came out in 2000. It was a limited art house release, but the audience just loved it. Like you, I had no idea that this was a thing. And I had such a great time watching this movie. It's just a simple movie. It's just a beautifully told story of something that really happened that was a key part of something that is much bigger. But it's done in such a way that you find this incredible connection with the humans that were involved in this story, just to kind of be a cog in this great big machine as it's kind of cranking, trying to get man to the moon. And this was our little connection that helped us actually have the video feed so that we could all see it and be inspired and amazed by what these astronauts achieved. So I just fell in love with this movie, and I've loved it ever since. So here we are.
This was a first for me, as it turns out, and I can't believe I missed it. I can't believe I missed it, mostly because I love The Castle, which was another film that this team did, and it has one of the very funniest courtroom scenes that I have seen in courtrooms. It is just delightful, a story of a guy who falls so in love with his house, his little piece of junk house, that he goes to court to keep it when when the state comes to try and take his property for the airfield. It is just hysterical, and So I saw this film and I read what it was about, and I thought, I wonder if they're going to be as just sort of ribald and ridiculous as they were in The Castle. And it turns out they were absolutely not. It was such a simple story, simple humor. As you say, it was a very human story. It wasn't gushy or mushy. It was smart. It demonstrated clear camaraderie around failure and this sweet, just sort of lightweight romance that just felt good. Ebert's review, I thought, was wonderful because he talks about how, comedies are evolving and have evolved, and the fact that, he sees more vulgar comedies and laughs hard at them is okay. Like, it's okay to love and laugh at these things that are even more ribald and not quite so sweet. But this film, with those films, you never walk out feeling quite as good. This really is a genuine feel-good film until you read the Amazon reviews, and then you just get mad.
Oh, dear.
You had the opportunity to talk with one of the members of the Working Dog Gang and one of the writers, Tom Gleisner. How did that call go?
It was a fascinating chance to chat with somebody who was kind of really involved in the conception and all of the decisions that went into telling the story. And this is something that you and I have talked about quite a bit on this show in any episode where we're talking about a movie that is based on something that really happened. Where did the filmmakers kind of draw that line as far as, deciding to stick with the facts versus deciding to fictionalize something? It certainly was something that I was curious about in the case of this particular story. So let's start with Tom answering that very question.
I think if you're going to base a story on true facts, I think you're under an obligation to not mess with anything that would be regarded as a key or critical part of the story, because I just think that's wrong. Obviously, you can combine characters. We reduced, I think, the number of people who were working at the radio telescope back in '69 was probably 20 or 30 people. Well, our budget didn't extend to that, so they were reduced to a skeleton crew of about 4 or 5. That sort of license, I think, is perfectly acceptable, but I don't think you can, turn around and rewrite key elements of a story.
There was obviously a lot of variety of characters we had. There were some critical characters we had that were working at the dish itself. We had a lot of townspeople, the mayor and his wife and his family. We had just a variety of other quirky characters that we got to meet. Where was the line as far as, did you stick with, okay, let's make sure we stick to the facts with kind of the as much as we can with the guys who are working at the dish, and then the townspeople we can kind of play with, and like for example, the guy I'm thinking of is the military boy who's kind of always coming up to the mayor and wants to date his daughter and everything.
Yeah, we could muck around with the townspeople because that was pure fiction.
Sure. And
as I mentioned, sometimes the budget can force your hand a little bit. I'm fairly certain from memory NASA sent out a team, 4 or 5 people to oversee things. Well, we reduced that team to one person because it made for cleaner storytelling lines.
Something that, poking around on the internet, I've found a few people who seem a little up in arms about how the film kind of disregards, I think it's called Honeysuckle Creek Tracking Station. You've stumbled across the controversy. Yes, shortly after and we were very much aware of this, that there were 2 radio telescopes in Australia, can you believe it, both standing by to receive and transmit the television pictures from the moon. And it's never been entirely clear which of them got the pictures first. From our reading, we feel it was Parkes, which is what we base the story on. But as you've alluded to, some of the scientists at Honeysuckle Creek felt a degree of umbrage that we'd overlooked their contribution. There's a couple different websites. One I found was, The Truth About the Dish. And it kind of goes goes through all the truth about honeysuckles part. And then there's another site that seemed to talk about how no, Parkes was really where it all was. So it definitely seems that there are still 2 sides of this story that have not ever come to an agreement.
There is a serious side to that in that I can I can understand anyone who was actually involved in a historical incident that is turned into a film, and you're watching it and you're thinking, gee, that is a total misrepresentation of the facts. I think you've got a right to be aggrieved in the case of the dish. As I say, I think we did our due diligence, and our research told us that Parkes was the radio telescope responsible for the pictures, and we are happy to stand by that. But I do think as filmmakers you do owe a duty to the truth. It is a tussle you find yourself in creatively, because of course you want to stay true to the facts, but yes, you need to make an entertaining story and a flow. And as I say, yes, as long as you don't start messing with the key facts of the piece, I think you have the right to, create an amalgamation of several people into one character, or have a few small dramatic embellishments that may not have happened. But as I say, as long as they don't mess with the major parts of the story.
This film, it looks like it did pretty well for you guys. I mean, it was, from what I saw, it was the top grossing film of 2000 down in Australia. So I think that's definitely saying that not only did you guys make a great film, but it certainly piqued people's curiosity. And I think people must have been quite excited to actually see this story. Is that the sense of it from the time?
Yes, I think that is true. It's curious in filmmaking how your release date can often be so important. From memory, the dish came out a month or so after the Sydney Olympic Games. So I think Australia was at that point riding high on a sense of national pride, having carried off a successful Olympic Games, and so I think the film just was a continuation of that warm international glow.
Well, I certainly remember seeing it in a theatrical release here in the U.S. when it came out. So obviously it was getting enough of a word to kind of be spread about a bit as far as global recognition. So do you recall, and can you divulge what the budget was? Like, do you have a sense as to how much you guys ended up spending on this film?
Look, I can't remember precisely. We actually funded it ourselves, so it was so I can tell you it was a limited budget. In fact, if I'll give you a quick plot of history, the dish was the first film we wrote, but being untested filmmakers, we couldn't convince anyone here in Australia to invest in it. In fact, one of the major film distributors told us that no one would be interested in a story that happened 40 years ago, 30 years ago. I'm thinking, okay, sure. So obviously the Titanic's not going to resonate,
Right.
But we put the dish aside and went and wrote a more modest budgeted film called The Castle, which we made about 3 or 4 years earlier, and that proved to be, well, it was our first film, but it proved to be enormously successful. So we were able to take basically profits from The Castle and put them into making the dish. The biggest I guess step for us was to make sure that the radio telescope upon which the film is based still existed and still looked much as it did in 1969. And to our great relief, the thing hasn't changed at all. Because our budget was so limited, there was no way we were going to go out and make a 3/4 size scale model of it. It had to be there, or we couldn't have made the film. And I think we had to shift one. There was one small building or hut that had been constructed at the base, which we managed to get moved for a week or two, and we were therefore able to make the film.
Fantastic. You obviously had a lot of access to it. I mean, they were moving the dish around for you guys and just able to get your actors actually working on top of it and everything. I mean, it's amazing the access that you guys ended up having for this.
We had to go right to the top. I think we got some support from the Minister for Science at the time, who I think a Spanish team of astronomers was asked to take a long weekend so we could get in there and film. I think they gave us 2 weeks at the facility, which was so it was a question of moving very quickly. In fact, that's a hallmark of the way we've always made film and television. I guess under a degree of restrictions, we only had 2 weeks at the dish. We also only had Sam Neill, who starred in the film, and was very keen to do it, but like had about 5 minutes off between, I think he just made Bicentennial Man or something, and he was about to head off probably another Jurassic Park or something in the wings. So once again, Sam said, look, I'd love to do it, but I can only give you X number of days. So we moved in a very, very sort of organised and methodical way, shot what we needed to at the dish, shot the scenes with Sam, and got on with it.
Up here in the States, we've got certain areas that have tax incentives. Certain states have tax incentives, and I always hear how Australia is like this wonderful place for filmmakers, and as far as incentives to get films made and everything. I know you guys said you funded it yourselves. Is that part of like through the whatever? I'm not sure what the organization is, the Australia Film Institute or anything like that. Or do they help you guys out doing these things, or how's that work?
No, we received no government assistance via those schemes for making the dish. I think Australia's attractiveness, certainly to the US, comes when the dollar sort of drops below a certain amount. So we'll often find Australia can be sort of inundated with American crews because the US dollar can be so strong. And then, of course, the markets change, and suddenly all the studios are empty again. So it's interesting to observe that. But no, we weren't the beneficiaries of any sort of tax scheme from memory. The biggest challenge, I guess, for us was the fact that it was a period piece set in 1969, and we didn't realise just how expensive making a period piece can be. We wanted to film a couple of scenes in the streets of Parkes, which is the town where the dish is located. And to our dismay, when we went there, they had something of a makeover in the 1980s, and very modern parking meters and buildings, and it really was never going to play. With our sort of budget, there was no way we could dress the street to look like it was 1969. So we had to find a nearby town about 50 miles up the road, a place called Forbes, Forbes, and we shot the street scenes in Forbes because it looked more like a 1969 town. But then during the filming, the people of Parkes learned that their rival town of Forbes was being used for the streetscape. So we found ourselves in the midst of a political storm at that point. So in the end, to placate everyone, we had to have a simultaneous premiere of the film, one in Parkes and one in Forbes, so that noses weren't sort of put further out of joint.
So the mayor of Parkes was so excited at the time that he was the one who got to have Parkes on the map, helping Apollo 11, and then the mayor of Forbes is the one who gets the glory for having you guys filmed the story in his town.
That's exactly right. In fact, there is a scene, for those who can be bothered freeze frame. I think there's a scene in one of the street scenes where, if you look very closely in the background, we failed to cover a sign saying Forbes. So even though they're supposed to be in the township of Parkes, I think there was only so much we could do. But as I mentioned, the strictures of doing a period piece are quite fascinating. You're obviously, anyone who makes a period film waits for the to be caught out that, oh, hang on, they didn't have that in 1969, or that word would not have been used in 1969. And we almost blew it. There's a scene where I think Sam Neill's character picks up a pencil to make some notes one evening in the radio telescope, and the pencil had a computer barcode on it, which was definitely not a 1969 phenomena, but luckily we had a very, very sharp-eyed continuity person who picked it up on about the second take, so we were able to reshoot it without the offending code.
And then, of course, you guys lucked out. It sounded like NASA didn't have the budget to ship all of their gear back, so it sounded like you guys got to use all the actual gear that these guys were using at the time.
We did indeed, where it was all sort of sitting in a warehouse somewhere. But we recreated it down in Melbourne, the interior of the dish, because, as I mentioned, we only had 2 weeks or 8 days access to the dish, so we had to shoot all the key exterior scenes there, and then recreated the control room closer to home, so we were able to film at a slightly more leisurely pace.
Well, Tom, you've been very gracious with your time today. I appreciate you chatting with me a little bit about this for our show. And you guys working on anything new and exciting up there?
Look, we've got an animated series which is coming to Netflix. Was just mentioned the other day in Variety. I saw it's called Pacific Heat. A little bit of a change of pace, but we've never done an animated series before, so we've just embarked on that. So yeah, that'll be around about December of this year, I think, on Netflix over your way. You can look out for Pacific Heat.
Perfect. Looking forward to that. Well, again, Tom, thank you so much, and best of luck to you guys down there.
Good on you. Nice to talk to you, Andy.
What a fantastic guy to take time to talk to the likes of you, Andy.
A little old
he
me.
treated you with respect far beyond your station.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. So thank you, Tom. I appreciate that.
This is, as we said in the beginning, this was a collective thing. You know, when we talk about Working Dog and the Working Dog gang, I imagine them as kind of a Studio Leica, right? Where you have a bunch of guys, a bunch of people in the studio who all work together to make movies, right?
Yeah.
It's just like they go to the office, all of them together, and they're going to make movies. Or it's like Pixar.
Yeah, it's totally that sort of group. This group of these people who've kind of come together. I mean, they went to school together. They really kind of have been following each other and working with each other since then. And they seem to be really tuned into how to tell the stories that they want to tell together, whether it's TV shows or movies. And I really enjoy that they kind of jump back and forth, especially, you know, I brought up in the interview how it didn't seem like the sort of thing that that they would naturally be drawn to based on some of the TV shows that they had done. But it was just, you know, looking for an interesting thing. And here they hit upon this. And I think what this group did, especially because they do a lot of comedy sort of stuff, is they were able to tap into just kind of that natural humor of people and how people are. And you definitely see that with the interaction of everybody in this film. And just kind of, you get this sense that these are real people, that this, even though a lot of the characters are fictionalized or kind of combined, they all feel 100% real.
One of the things I love about their approach is that it lampoons their relationship with America, right? But it does it in such a gentle way that you can't help but walk away smiling. This doesn't feel like an Australian picture to me. It feels very much like a film of the globe. And part of that, I think, is so much their touch on the humanity, their ability to capture so many different personalities all rolled up into one character that sort of is representative of many different people, and to do so with just a very delicate touch and expertise. I loved it.
It is nice having the different ways that people work together, whether it's, you know, the person who feels like, oh, these U.S. bigwigs are, they're here to treat us like a peck of galahs, or whatever he says. Yeah. Or kind of the person who's just a lot more calm and kind of looking at the situation. And I really enjoyed the way that the American that's in this particular situation is really, he's not pushy. He's just there. He's, just doing his job. He's, they're all really just focused on achieving things and making sure things are done right. And I think one of the moments that I like so much in this film is after all of these people who work at the dish are so panicked that they've lost the Apollo 11, which is floating around somewhere up in space. Al, after they find it and everything's okay and they get it back online, Al says, you know, it would have been okay if we just told them. They're always screwing up. It's the nature of this industry, and it's okay, and people just work things out. It would have been fine. And it's like, that's such an interesting perspective, because you go through this huge panic about, we're the buffoons who have lost the shuttle or lost the Apollo 11. And here he is just kind of saying, no, it's okay. We're all screwing up. Even in the U.S., this whole NASA thing that we have going on, we're making as many mistakes as you are, because this whole space thing, this is pretty new.
Yeah, right. Yeah,
I love that.
Yeah, me too. I absolutely love it. And that was actually one thing. I'd read the backgrounder on this film, and particularly some of the frustration about where the original story, the real story, sort of diverges from the cinematic story. And this was one point that I found myself sort of pre-frustrated about. How are they going to handle the fact that there was no power outage? And I'm not sure, did that imply they didn't lose the Apollo 11 in real life? Do you know?
I don't know. And that's, I guess, one of those questions about, were they just adding some extra tension?
Yeah.
I did find some great websites, like I had mentioned to Tom, The Truth About the Dish, and this other website that's more kind of from the NASA perspective. And it's interesting looking at everybody's perspectives on all of that, and I'll have to kind of poke around on the websites a little bit and see if they actually did lose the lunar module.
Because the way I read it and then saw the movie, I read it as if they say, we did not actually lose the Apollo 11 module. We didn't lose it, and that was added as part of this. We blew a fuse and the whole town lost fuel. That was added for dramatic effect. And you know what? As a dramatic beat in the film, it works really well. But the payoff where you get Patrick Warburton's speech that you just described is so heartwarming and so touching that it's worth it for me.
And this is kind of that line of, where are you telling the truth in a situation, or where are you going to fictionalize it? And I think that's an instance where, okay, it might have been fiction to have this whole power outage just to create some dramatic tension for the film, but it allows for us to have those moments that give us a better sense of this world that we're living in. Because if we didn't have that, we wouldn't have had a chance to have a conversation about NASA and the mistakes NASA makes.
We've already talked a little bit about Rob Sitch and as stepping in as director. Sounds really like any one of them could have come in as director. What's your sense of his role?
Yeah, I forgot to ask Tom, or I should have asked him. So how do you guys pick? Did you flip a coin to see who's going to direct this one? No, I think Rob brought a great humanity to it. He did find the humanity. I mean, we've already talked about this. These guys all conceived this story and created these wonderful characters. But obviously, the director is the one who's kind of sitting there and getting the actors to read their lines and really finding the way to deliver everything that's really kind of connects the audience to the story. And I think he did an incredible job. I mean, all of these performances are just so authentic, from the smallest supporting character all the way up through Sam Neill. I mean, I think he does a great job of just telling a compelling story here.
I couldn't agree more. Just the way the thing was structured. I only have one complaint, and it really is a script complaint, which we'll get into, but his overall sensibility with the film, the tone of the film, and really ratcheting down the lampoon vibe of these characters, which are really easy to lampoon, right? Both the Americans, and to have a guy like Warburton in this role, who is known for his ability to do this as an actor. I think they played it. They just let the story tell the story. They didn't really let these characters get away with themselves, and I think that was fantastic.
This was a series of characters that, like you said, they could have been very easily lampooned. But you see things like the mayor of the town, and how every time he's telling a joke, his wife happens to walk up and give away the punchline and spoil it. It could have turned into something so much bigger, but it was just a nice little character moment, and it lets it be that.
Let's talk a little bit about first shot, last shot, shall we?
Absolutely.
First shot, wide landscape. We pan left. There's a car in the distance. Dissolves in as we get closer and closer until we meet our friend Sam Neill, and he steps out of the car.
And when you say old Sam Neill, you mean Sam Neill in age makeup.
Yeah, and I mean really old Sam Neill. I will restrain right now. But man, did he look terrible. Jeez.
And then the last shot, it's the aerial of the dish after old Sam Neill has hopped in his car and is driving away.
Yes, he is. So the first and last shot represent my big complaint, my central complaint about this film that I think we did not need.
I agree. Yes, it's a framing device. We get this framing device of Cliff Buxton now much later in his life as he's driving up and kind of visiting the site, looks at the dish, reminisces about the whole story that we have, and then of course a guard comes in and kind of boots him out, and that's it. I don't know. It wasn't necessary, other than to kind of create that instant sense of nostalgia, I guess, is what they were trying to do here.
I guess, but you just imagine that same wide landscape, that same pan left, car in the distance, with the same dissolve as it gets closer, and that, you know what? The car parks, and you know who gets out? Sam Neill. And you know where he goes? Into work. Right? I mean, what did we get out of that framing device apart from old Sam Neill in terrible age makeup being accosted by a teenager?
It didn't work for me. That's the one thing about it that I struggled with. It is a framing device, and it could have easily been cut out. And it is our first shot, last shot, just kind of, I guess in a way, just kind of setting up the sense of nostalgia and looking back for this particular story. But as we've both said, wasn't necessary.
Sam Neill specifically is a character, an actor that we both know, I think, pretty well. We've seen him in a lot of things. He plays a wonderful elder statesman and the straight man for so much of the craziness that goes on in the dish.
He's just great here, and there's a great sense of his character having lost his wife. The way that they play that and just the little nuggets you get until he finally talks a little bit more about it, I just really like. I like how he kind of responds to things and reacts to things or doesn't react to things. How he pulls out his pipe. Everything about what he's doing here, I think, is just right on. And it's a Sam Neill that I really enjoy. It's definitely different than the big Sam Neill in the Jurassic Park movies. Looking at the late 80s, early 90s, I mean...
the piano.
There's like everything until the end of the world. Memoirs of an Invisible Man, the piano, Jurassic Park, Sirens, In the Mouth of Madness, just in lots and lots of things that I was watching.
He had just done Bicentennial Man. He just finished shooting Bicentennial Man and came to this in the break between Bicentennial Man and shooting Jurassic Park 3. There were a number of other kind of films in there, some TV films, voice work, but really those were the two big films that you already mentioned in the interview. I thought that was an interesting bit of timing.
Yeah, it's certainly a variety of stories that he was telling right around then, and this was definitely the smaller one. And I can see why he would jump on something like this. I know it was a small window of time that they managed to squeeze him in, but boy, am I glad that he ended up being in this because he just fits. He really seems to just be the type of actor who should be in a story like this.
Other actors that should be in a story like this. How about Kevin Harrington as Mitch?
Oh, he's good.
He's the sort of surly, if there's such a thing of surly and sarcastic engineer working in this in the dish. The rest of these actors, only one other. There are a couple of others on the list that I know something of their work. I don't know anything of Kevin Harrington's work, but I love this story that Kevin Harrington and Rob Sitch were sitting in the very same classroom at the very same primary school watching the Apollo 11 moon landing together when they were kids, and they did not know each other. And then they end up meeting each other and doing this film together 30 years later. That is fantastic.
That is just craziness. And it's a fantastic story. It's just one of those weird things. Like, how does that happen? But there it is.
Yeah, there it is. There it is. He was fantastic. He and Sam Neill are part of the trio of the Australian engineers, rounded out by Tom Long playing Glenn Latham, who is the young, awkward scientific genius programmer who we meet both through his expert relationship with numbers in the very beginning as he corrects NASA's mathematics around their I guess longitude, latitude, their all of their metrics, their math, and they had calculated it all incorrectly for the northern hemisphere, but they're in the southern hemisphere, and so he ended up embarrassing the team because he just fixed it. He just didn't want anybody to be embarrassed about it. I thought that was great.
It was great, and of course, as great as he is with his numbers, he's equally as awkward with the women, and his the wonderful relationship he has with Janine is just it's just so sweet.
It's so sweet because she is equally awkward. She may have a better time, handling her budding relationship with him than she does certainly when she gets behind the wheel. She's just a disaster in the car, and I love that that's her thing. She can't drive, and he can't talk to women, but he's great at it. She can talk to men, but she can't. I just love their whole complex calculus there. It was great.
Fantastic.
We do know Patrick Warburton, however, as Al. He was the NASA representative, Al Burnett, and it was so strange to see him playing so straight.
Yeah, isn't it great? It's like there's something about seeing him doing this that it just is so not what you expect from him in, The Emperor's New Groove or Seinfeld or anything else that he's done, where he has that really kind of, he uses his voice to such a great end to kind of just create this really laconic sense of humor. And here it's just, he's a straight man, and he just does it so naturally and so nicely, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, it really showcases him as a talent. This is a guy that can go from NASA engineer to the Tick and play them both absolutely just perfectly. I think he is incredibly talented. I was so gratified to see him in this role, and it sort of saddens me that I look at his upcoming stuff. It's just, more Family Guy, Lemony Snicket voice in the TV series, and Animal Crackers playing Brock, another voice character. And because he has such a great voice, but my goodness, give this guy a chance to act more.
Absolutely. He really should be in just about anything, because he's great to see.
The sweet village idiot character is played by Tyler Kane as Rudy Kellerman, and Rudy is in such a great position. This is a guy who takes his job super seriously as the guard to the dish.
My favorite bit is finding out that he is Janine's brother, and that moment where he kind of acknowledges he's not going to, he'll let her go. Doesn't have to get her to sign in.
Yes, her sign in authorized. Don't tell Mom she'll come take my gun. It's just a great bit, but he's full of great bits. From that one to, when he brings the food over from the party and just sits there and looks at it until Sam Neill says, do you want some? Oh, yeah, thanks. I'm really hungry.
No, my favorite bit is when he thinks he's talking to Neil Armstrong over the radio.
Neil, is that you? That was a wonderful thing. So well, explain that scene.
They're faking it, because this is when, of course, they have lost the whole mission. They've lost the ship, and they can't find it. And of course, that's the exact moment that the U.S. ambassador comes to visit. And so Ross and Glenn sneak off to the other room it's Al, right? Ross and Al sneak off to the other room to pretend they are up there in space, and they're communicating with Houston. And while the U.S. ambassador listens in, and of course they're just using their own radios, and of course Rudy is there happening to listen in and thinks that he is actually hearing and talking to Neil Armstrong over his walkie-talkie.
He was a treat every time he was on screen. He was always brought in at just the right places. You know how they used him in the script, I think, was really smart, because every time we'd get into just dipping our toes into a serious moment, when these characters are in a space of particular vulnerability, when they're frustrated with their relationship with the Americans, when they're scared about how they're going to rebuild all of this code to be able to find the ship again, there was Rudy. He would yell something from the distance. Who goes there was a common kind of refrain, and he would break the tension in just the right way. And I think it just allows you as the viewer to maintain a steady sense of emotional connection without too many, extreme highs or extreme lows. And it was just really smart.
Yeah, he works great in this film.
Roy Billing as Mayor Robert Bob McIntyre. He is head of his family and the town.
I already said how much I enjoyed his relationship with his wife, May, and just the fact that they create this relationship between the two where every time he's about to deliver a punchline to one of his jokes, his wife happens to walk up and spoils it. And then interrupts casually with a spoiler, and then, oh, would you guys like some tea or whatever it is? It's like a perfect way to develop that relationship. But he's just so great as this guy who's trying to make something of his town, this little town, Parkes, in the middle of Australia, and here he is all of a sudden at the center of attention, and he's got this U.S. ambassador here, and the Prime Minister is coming by, and just all of that stuff, and he's a character who could have just gone completely silly, but they treat him like a real human being who's just got he's another person, and he's got funny things about him, but he's also just a kind of a good leader making these choices.
Did you recognize him when you saw him in the film? He's been in a bunch of stuff.
Oh, he's a busy man. Yeah, I mean, he's still working too. Got 120 credits listed on IMDb. I mean, Rabbit Proof Fence. He was in the Chronicles of Narnia, Voyage of the Dawn Treader. This is a guy who's in a lot of things, and I didn't recognize him, but he's one of those guys, you know.
Yeah, there are a couple of those guys in here, but none. And we should talk about his assistant. Andrew S. Gilbert plays Len Purvis. Again, if only to talk about how this character is used in the script, and he's a comedic foil for Roy Billing for the mayor, and such a sycophant, a incredibly foul-mouthed sycophant. Whenever Bob leaves a sort of open-ended question, you know why we'll do that, don't you? He answers his assistant Len with just an absolutely foul-mouthed tirade about why he may do it. He's totally wrong every time. He's wrong every time. But it's a fantastic pairing, fantastic character. In terms of faces that we recognize, Lenka Kripach.
Yes, indeed. And
yeah,
it's so funny because I did not even realize who she was until I was looking at IMDb.
Yeah,
and I saw,
she plays, of course, the daughter.
Right.
She's the mayor's daughter, and she's really sour and very much into her sort of militant agenda.
Yes, which is fantastic.
Right?
It's definitely
she's a teenager.
Definitely a trope that we've seen in films before, but it's done well here. And but the best bit, she's in Moneyball, but she's not really in Moneyball.
It took a whole team of experts to track this down.
No, it's so funny because I was like, wait, she's in Moneyball? And you're like, no. It says she's on the soundtrack. And then I'm looking at the soundtrack and it says, oh, she wrote the song The Show. And I'm like, wait, she's that Lenka?
She's that Lenka. Yeah. Amazing how a last name will just throw you completely off.
Yes, right, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
What's Cher's last name?
Lenka.
They never throw that at us.
But Lenka Kripach is actually Lenka, and she is in this film, and she's fantastic as this surly teenager. I adored her in this film. She was great, and she has her male suitor, who is in the what did you call it? What's the
Australian
US
Army
kind of compared? Yeah, he's Australian, but he's more like ROTC, right? I mean,
I don't know what that is because he's just
almost Army,
right? Yeah, or is he just kind of gearing up for it? I'm not quite sure, but I know what you're saying.
But he was fantastic, always trying to kind of to get with her, have a connection with Marie, and she just stomped on him every single time, and he kept coming back. It was just delightful. So really great. Bill Brown plays the Prime Minister.
And he's just a fierce, great prime minister. He's a huge Australian Shakespeare actor, but also on the flip side, he played King Arthur in the Australian production of Spamalot. So it's great that he's kind of getting both sides of that in there. And he was in Fierce Creatures, which I thought was such a fun movie. So another actor who has done quite a number of things. So it was nice to see him here.
And then finally, sadly, John McMartin as U.S. Ambassador Howard. Again, talk about a prolific straight man.
He's so good. He was in All the President's Men, a movie we talked about ages ago. And he's great here as the U.S. ambassador. And again, going back to that scene where he thinks he's talking to Neil Armstrong or hearing Neil Armstrong talking to Houston over the radio. I mean, that's such a cute little moment that he has there. And that character, I can imagine him for the rest of his life thinking, wow, I actually had a chance to listen to Neil Armstrong without ever knowing that he was listening to those guys in the back room. Oh, it's just so funny. He's just one of those character actors who's just great.
The best moment for me, though, and I actually had to stop and slack you about this in the middle of the movie because I was weeping. I was laughing so hard. They're playing this party to welcome the U.S. ambassador, right? And the only band that they have playing is it's like the high school rock band or something. Right. And they're playing some jazz tunes. They're playing some standard kind of fare that they were very excited that they had learned a new tune by James Hendricks. which it was a great little comic moment. But the bit is the organizer, the woman who's organizing the thing, says you have to learn the American national anthem. And I said, the American national anthem? What? She said, you have 48 hours to learn the American national anthem. And then we go on with the film. We come back, the ambassador arrives, everything is going really well. It's just great. And then, please, everybody, would you please stay upstanding as we play the American national anthem? And when the band cuts into the Hawaii Five-0 theme song, I about lost it. I lost it. It was brilliant. That was an absolutely wonderful turn and a great use of music. And maybe I was just in the mood. I don't know. But it was a treat. And I bring it up now because this is where John McMartin really excels. His face was so stoic and so warm as he held his hand over his heart during the Hawaii Five-0 theme song.
Well, then he's got the great line, sometimes I wish it was our national anthem.
Yeah. It was a perfect bit and just really where this film excels. So great stuff.
He was great. He was a busy man all the way up to the end of his career, which did end just actually this past July when he passed away.
Great loss. Film cinematography by Graham Wood. Anything of note by the good Graham Wood?
I think it looked great. I thought that Graham did a fine job of capturing the look of this film. It didn't feel like they needed to go sepia tone or anything to kind of make it feel like the 60s or anything. It just had a nice feel to it. I think that pairs both with him and then the production design, Kerry Kennedy and Ben Morrison. I think they all did a great job, along with Kitty Stuckey for costumes. I mean, they really helped create this whole world.
Yeah, they really did, and to the point where they really surprised people who actually worked in these places and got a chance to walk through the set of just how accurate this place looked, even if it wasn't completely staffed. If it was, if they compressed some dramatic elements of the film, it sure did look of a piece with the time. So. And
certainly, like I mentioned in the interview, I mean, it was great that they actually had access to some of these actual devices that NASA left behind to kind of fill in the gaps. So all in all, I mean, it feels really authentic. I thought they did a great job here.
We've got to talk about the music. I already brought up Hawaii Five-0, which is a central high point in the film, but I know you have more to say.
The music is great in this film. Edmund Choi composed the music. It's a really sweet score. I really enjoyed just the feel of it. It works nicely. It captures the vibe and everything, paired with just a fantastic score. But I thought Edmund Choi did a really great job of creating the overall musical world here.
The montage of moving the dish, the first time we see the dish move, set to classical gas, Mason Williams classical gas, was, I thought, really energetic and compelling and mysterious all at once. I thought it was great. But the soundtrack, I've been listening to it all day. I mean, Russell Morris, Steppenwolf, The Loved Ones, Moody Blues, Peter Sullivan Band. It's just a great mix. It's one that you can listen to all the way through. The nice thing about it is they put all of the Melbourne Symphony Orchestra stuff on there too. It's a beautiful score.
That's fantastic. I'm going to have to pick that one up.
Any awards, Andy?
Yeah, speaking of the music, this did well. It won for the ARIA Music Award, the Best Original Soundtrack Album. It was nominated for an Australian Film Institute Original Score and Best Film. Didn't win. But then for the Film Critics Circle of Australia Awards, it ended up winning for Best Original Screenplay. And again, Edmund Choi won for Best Musical Score, tying with Cesare Skubijewski for Bootmen. I'm totally butchering that name, but it was a tie for the Best Musical Score. The film also was nominated by the Film Critics Circle of Australia for Best Film, Best Male Actor, Sam Neill, Best Supporting Male Actor, Roy Billing, Best Supporting Actor Female, Genevieve Mui, Best Director, Rob Sitch, Best Cinematography, Graham Wood, and Best Editing, Jill Bilcock. So it definitely was a top contender of the year for them.
And it performed well in 2000 for the Australian film industry, yes?
Oh, yes, it did. As I mentioned in the interview earlier, this was the #1 film at the Australian box office in 2000. So they did a great job of capturing the attention of everybody there. It opened October 19th, 2000. The unfortunate thing is I really couldn't find any actual budget information, and Tom didn't have a lot of budget information to say other than this was a self-funded film. They didn't have a lot of money. They just kind of used what they could. So, yeah, that's that. But, domestically here in the States, it made $2.5 million, and internationally about $14 million. So all told, it ended up making a pretty decent chunk of change, a total adjusted gross in today's dollars of about $23.5 million. So for a small budget film, I think these guys did a great job.
One of the benefits of a film that's based on a true story that is centers on a real location that is quite so iconic and findable on a map is that we can discuss which road they actually drive up on and which angles of the shot that they took, and that is in fact what we have been doing in the Maps app on your fair computer. You bring it up and you can see this dish, and first of all, it's giant.
Oh yes, yeah.
I guess it makes sense but you can see it like practically from space. I don't know if you knew that.
Funny how that works.
It's actually I see a giant string just floating up into space.
This is, of course, CSIRO Parkes Radio Telescope that we're looking at in our lovely Google Maps. But it is fun. I mean, looking at, which is the road that Sam Neill drove on, the old Sam Neill, when he was on the wrong road, and trying to figure that out. But it is definitely out in the middle of a sheep paddock.
It is in the middle of a sheep paddock, and it's still in the middle of a sheep paddock. I love that is something that is carried on. I see, maybe there are sheep. Maybe I'm actually looking at some sheep, those little white dots.
They could be. They could be.
It
It's interesting. This dish was actually not designed to last as long as it has, but they have kept taking care of it and adding to it and improving upon it. And it is still open and operating today. In fact, you can go to their website and you can visit it. It's open 7 days a week, from 8:30 a.m. to 4:15 p.m., including public holidays.
Well, that seems appropriate.
It's right out there, way out in the middle of Australia, but it's definitely a place worth checking out. So you can see the dish and learn a bit about astronomy and space exploration.
Well, I want a live broadcast from there. You think they would beam us?
We could ask.
I'd like to do that. I would like the next reel to be beamed into space.
We should work on that.
I want to do that.
I'll get on it.
We're going to be the next Voyager Gold record.
And the reason they never chose
That's right. All of alien life is waved off because they heard the next reel. I think it's probably time, Andy, for us to rank it.
Let's do it.
Head over to flickchart.com/the-next-reel. And you know the drill. We're gonna rank the dish next to a selection of movies from all the films that we've talked about on this very show. Filmo a filmo, you get to choose. If you had a desert island, a television, and just the dish and one other film, which one would you choose? It's gut-wrenching, it's horrific, but we do it every week. Andy?
You ready for this?
No.
What do you think it is?
I think it's Oh Brother.
You're right. Of course it is. The Dish or Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? That's a tough one.
I really enjoyed this.
I did too.
I'm going to pick The Dish.
I think I am too.
Wow.
I know.
Let's do it. We're going to be rebels, and we're going to move forward.
There you go. The Dish
we'll
or
forget this conversation ever happened.
That's right. The Dish or Contagion? The Dish for me.
Hit you. Is it The Dish?
Yeah, it is.
Is it because you laughed just a little bit less in Contagion?
I laughed just as much, oddly.
I will join you in The Dish.
That sounds like a fun place to sit. All right, The Dish. Oh, now it's getting to the point where it's hard. The Dish or Aliens? Totally going with Aliens.
Aliens, yeah.
Sorry, Sam. The Dish or LA Confidential?
LA Confidential. Yeah.
Yep. The Dish or Zodiac? I'm going with Zodiac.
All right, I will go Zodiac too.
Two great period films.
Yeah, they're really great period films.
The Dish or Fargo?
I'm
going Fargo.
Pretty easily, it sounds like. Like this gives you no
pause.
The
Coen brothers already lost one to The Dish, so
Is that what it is?
I'm not really.
This is payback? You're keeping score on behalf of the Coen brothers, who I'm sure listen regularly.
I know they do.
Oh boy. I'm so on the fence that I'll give it to you. I don't need to introduce false drama.
Okay. The Dish or Three Amigos.
The Dish, please.
I am Three Amigos.
I am the Dish, although I love Three Amigos. Let's do it.
All right.
1, 2, 3.
Paper.
Scissors.
Ooh.
Wow.
Slice me up.
Wow.
All right.
That was I changed my mind at the very last minute, Andy. You almost won that. I don't know. Better Angels stepped in.
Well, you did good. The Dish or Scarlet Street.
Oh.
That's a pretty killer Fritz Lang film there.
Yep. That was good film and a good series. I think I'm Scarlet Street.
I think I am too. I'm really torn though. It's getting real close. And there it is. We are at number 64 on our flick chart.
Wow.
Yes, indeed.
Nice place for a little Australian film.
Fantastic. And that's out of 267 movies. So this definitely shot right up there. So great movie. I'm glad we talked about it.
Really tickles us. Where does that put you for your Letterboxd?
I feel like I'm a 4-star on this one.
I'm a 4.5 star on this one, Andy.
Look at that.
And that is a half-star deduction for old man makeup. That's the old man makeup deduction.
Oh, that's
We
great.
need no framing device and the old man makeup.
All right. Well, I think that's very fair for such a wonderful film.
Wonderful film. Where do we go next in this little this little series?
Well, it's not quite as an uplifting story, although it certainly is a gripping one. We're going to be heading on over to Africa and Somalia to join the troops as they figure out what to do when their Black Hawk goes down. We'll be talking about Ridley Scott's wonderfully gripping war drama, Black Hawk Down.
So it's literally uplifting for a time.
When the Black Hawk is up,
It's up. It's uplifting.
Yes.
It's lifted, and then it's down.
And then it's down.
You see what I did there?
Yes.
Yeah. Cerebral humor.
Pretty terrible. It's completely strange, but just to mention it, we happen to be recording this on the anniversary of the date when things went down in Mogadishu.
Next week? Or
No,
right today, right now?
Today, when we're recording this show,
Oh,
October
jeez.
3rd. Yeah.
Boy, you're
Crazy.
a downer.
Way to kill the mood.
Well, I'll take it. This was a really fun film. I think I'll recover. And thanks for shoehorning it into the series, Andy. This was a great catch.
Yeah, I'm glad you finally got to see it.
Yeah, me too. Now I gotta go to bed.
All right, well, I'm off to dance to our national anthem.
Andy, I told you I was gonna get mad.
And
During
here it comes.
Amazon giveth,
As Amazon always doeth.
I read this and I was frustrated. A customer wrote this in on Amazon in 2001. They watched this on DVD. A not particularly funny comedy about the moon landing in '69, focusing on the Parkes radio telescope and the eggheads who work there. Really? Eggheads? Mean. Who knows how much of it is true? Some reviewers here insist it's basically fiction, which I rather doubt. Clearly, the big radio dish in the sheep farm in Parkes, New South Wales, brought us the first images of the men walking on the moon. Why nitpick? The movie is at least gently educational for most Americans who probably never realized Australia's contribution to one of humanity's seminal moments. Problem is, the dish doesn't do much of anything else besides gently educate. Once again, we have the cute locals, always bumbling, always well-meaning, and always irritatingly, unrealistically eccentric. This type of movie has practically become a genre for the art house crowd. I call it the Ned Devine syndrome. The tone of the thing wavers between tearful pride and bunny rabbit cuteness, not a happy combination, and without well-drawn characters, Sam Neill's stoically mushy performance and Patrick Warburton's mannered performance do not mitigate what are, after all, very light sketches. the lack of focus is only more evident. So
Ned Devine syndrome.
I know. So mad. I disagree. Stand to agree to disagree.
Well, I stand with you.
Thank you.
I have the only 1-star review on Amazon for The Dish from July 13th, 2015. No plot, but a nice, gentle movie. This is DP who says, not much of a story here. And not much of a review here either, DP.
You know what's funny about it? I found myself really delighting in the fact that this film, like, it leads up to all of the intensity of the film leads up to moments of them watching TV or listening to the radio. Which I thought it was like, that was all the drama. That's funny in itself, DP and a customer. Come on.
Yes, it is. Hear, hear.
Thanks, Amazon.
It is hard to believe that we have been having in-depth weekly conversations about movies since 2011.
Oh, I know. You're telling me. Producing this show week after week requires a ton of work behind the scenes. If you'd like to help support our efforts, one easy way is by using our originals page when shopping for books and movies that we've covered.
Just visit thenextreel.com/originals. Your purchases made through our links give us a small commission at no extra cost to you and allow us to keep having these great conversations.
In Season 6, our Disease Films series had adaptations like The Omega Man, based on I Am Legend, The Andromeda Strain, Children of Men, and Blindness.
I Am Legend is so much better than The Omega Man.
What about the Will Smith version?
Don't get me started.
For our This Is Real Life Jack series, we talked Black Hawk Down and Seabiscuit, some great true stories based on fantastic books.
And we had more listeners' choices like The Fly, The Emigrants, and Scott Pilgrim vs. the World.
You just did a series on The Fly on the Sitting in the Dark podcast. Did you read the original material?
Wasn't watching every Fly movie enough?
Our Big Betty Davis series featured adaptations like The Little Foxes, Now Voyager, All About Eve, and Whatever Happened to Baby Jane.
Are you calling Betty Davis big?
Only in personality and force.
She is a force to be reckoned with.
We talked about the entire The Godfather trilogy, of course. Iconic page to screen, even if it is just the one Mario Puzo book. I wonder if Coppola will ever make The Sicilian.
We also had some Zhang Yimou adaptations with Judo and Raise the Red Lantern. Absolutely gorgeous movies.
And don't forget the Hughes Brothers series with From Hell, based on the graphic novel. Brilliant material.
Kelly Reichardt gave us Wendy and Lucy and Certain Women, adapted from short stories.
Plus more Hayao Miyazaki as we tackled Howl's Moving Castle.
Find all these books and more at thenextreel.com/originals. Every purchase supports the show.
Get the full list of adapted films that we've covered at thenextreel.com/originals and start your next read today.